If you ask them what cry does a Yeti have, they usually describe it as a scream, a shriek, or like some form of disturbed game bird.
It started with a crunch in the snow. Sharp, deliberate, impossibly close. The man reached for his camera, thinking he'd catch another snow hare or mountain goat. Instead, through the lens, he captured something he couldn't explain.
We have found the Yeti, and the scientific world and the cryptozoological world explode.
Something that changed his face from awe to horror the moment he zoomed in. What he saw has reignited a centuries-old debate, and may be the clearest proof yet. The Yeti is not just legend, it's real. The discovery, the man, the mission, the moment. It wasn't his first time in the Himalayas, but it was the first time he questioned his sanity. Jacob Marchant, a 38-year-old British wildlife photographer and part-time expedition guide, had been chasing whispers of the Yeti for over a decade. Unlike the usual cryptid chasers armed with shaky camcorders and conspiracy boards, Jacob came equipped with state-of-the-art camera gear, satellite positioning systems, and a stubborn commitment to skepticism. He didn't believe in monsters, but he did believe that unexplored wilderness sometimes hid things no textbook could explain. His trip began like the many before it, cold, grueling, and silent. Alongside a small team of Sherpa guides and one climatologist tagging glacial drift patterns, Jacob had been documenting changes in snow leopard territories near the base of Makalu, a remote Himalayan peak close to the Nepal-China border. But the real reason he came, though he didn't advertise it, was because local shepherds in the region had recently reported a white giant stalking livestock near the tree line. Rumors, of course. Still, he packed a thermal scope. On the third morning of their trek, Jacob woke earlier than usual. The sky had just begun to tint with the ghostly blue of pre-dawn, and a low mist hugged the valley floor like breath frozen in place. With most of the group still asleep, he stepped outside the tent to test a new 600mm lens he'd recently acquired. That's when he heard it, the unmistakable crack of snow under weight. Not the light scattering of falling ice or the shift of a nearby branch. This was a footstep. Instinct kicked in. He raised his camera and scanned the ridgeline just above camp, expecting to see a bear. But what he caught in his viewfinder wasn't lumbering, nor hunched. It stood tall upright, and paused for a full 2 seconds before moving again. Click, click, click. His fingers moved automatically. The figure was covered in thick, mottled white-gray fur, nearly blending into the snow behind it. But the shape was undeniably humanoid. Broad shoulders, long arms that reached past the knees, and a gait that was smooth but heavy. Almost intentional. It moved without panic. Without haste. It knew it was being watched and didn't care. Jacob held his breath. He took 15 photos in total before the creature turned into the trees and vanished like mist. But it wasn't until he got back to his tent and zoomed in on the images that something truly disturbing happened. The first few photos showed the silhouette in mid-stride, half obscured by snow flurries. But in 3 of them, the figure was clear enough to see texture, individual clumps of fur, muscular definition beneath it. One shot even caught a partial side profile of the face. That's when Jacob turned pale. The eyes. The eyes were what did it. When zoomed in, the creature's face bore an unsettling resemblance to a human's: deep-set eyes, a strong brow, a flat nose, and a slightly opened mouth revealing not animal fangs but square, yellowing teeth. The eyes weren't wild or bestial, they were intelligent, observant, aware. And something about the expression, the tightness of the jaw, the arch of the brow, didn't say beast. It said, "I see you too." Jacob staggered back from the camera screen, nearly knocking over his thermos. For a few seconds, he couldn't breathe. Was it a trick of the light? A fluke of perspective? He reviewed the images again. No glitching pixels, no digital artifacts, just a clear, brutally honest photograph of something that by all accounts should not exist. He didn't show the others right away. In fact, he didn't speak at all that day, claiming altitude sickness when questioned. Only later, back in Kathmandu, did he share the photos with two trusted colleagues. One, a photojournalist specializing in hoaxes, the other, a Himalayan anthropologist. Both had the same reaction: silence, followed by disbelief, followed by the inevitable question, "Is this real?" Jacob wasn't sure how to answer. All he could say was this: "I was there, I took them, and I've never been more afraid in my life." He sent copies to a small circle of cryptozoologists, including a few skeptics. One responded within hours: "If this is a fake, it's the best I've ever seen. If it's not, we're not ready for what it means." And that was the thing. Even in the stillness of the images, even as Jacob tried to rationalize what he saw, there was a growing weight in his gut. This wasn't like the dozens of sightings that had circulated before. This wasn't a blurry outline or an indistinct shape at the edge of frame. This was undeniably there. Some details in the image defied easy explanation. The creature's fur wasn't just snow-covered, it was camouflaged, almost structurally similar to the terrain. Its hands had too many visible joints to match any known primate, and the shadow it cast confirmed a height of over 7 feet. But most disturbingly, there appeared to be something hanging from its waist, a crude belt or pouch made from woven plant fibers. Human-like, tool-using. Jacob hadn't just captured a creature, he might have captured a culture. In the days that followed, he debated going public. He knew what would come: ridicule, fame, online war zones of believers and skeptics. He uploaded one heavily cropped image anonymously to a private Reddit forum. Within 12 hours, it had over 40,000 upvotes and a tidal wave of theories, from government test subjects gone rogue to lost Neanderthals in isolation. But none of them explained everything. That's when a user named Snow_Watch99, claiming to be a Nepalese ranger, messaged him privately, "I've seen it too, what you photographed. It watches us more than we watch it." Jacob hasn't returned to the Himalayas since, but his photos? They're still being analyzed, and not just by armchair cryptid hunters. Biologists, intelligence groups, and even a defense agency reportedly reached out. If what Jacob saw wasn't a hoax, then the question isn't just what is the Yeti? It's why has it been hiding so well until now? Analysis, authenticity, and expert opinions. The images didn't stay secret for long. Less than a week after Jacob's anonymous upload to a cryptozoology forum, the photos had spread across the internet like wildfire. Within days, they were being dissected frame by frame in YouTube analysis videos, broken down on conspiracy subreddits, and hotly debated in scientific Slack groups. The debate wasn't about whether they were compelling, they were. The debate was about how they could possibly be real. From a purely photographic standpoint, the images were a nightmare for skeptics. They were sharp, centered, balanced in exposure. Shot at sunrise, the low golden light gave the snow a soft contrast that made the figure stand out with eerie clarity. There were no telltale signs of CGI or digital manipulation, no blurring around the edges, no mismatch in lighting, no pixel discrepancies under forensic magnification. That last point caught the attention of Dr. Eliza Mendez, a forensic imaging specialist often brought in to verify media in legal and journalistic contexts. After examining the high-resolution RAW files sent anonymously from a secure Proton Mail account, her verdict was blunt. If this is fake, it's not photoshopped. Not in any traditional sense. The lighting, focus depth, and environmental integration are consistent. It behaves like a real object in real space. What puzzled her most was the creature's fur, or more precisely, how the fur interacted with light. According to Dr. Mendez, there's a level of natural diffusion, particularly in backlit frames, that's hard to replicate without LiDAR-generated models or hyper-realistic rendering engines, tools usually reserved for big-budget studios. Yet the photos had all the irregularities you'd expect from fieldwork: slight hand tremors, snow distortion, lens flare. If this was a hoax, it was done in camera, under brutal conditions, and with equipment that costs more than most people's cars. Then came the anthropologists. Dr. Samir Bhattacharya, a cultural anthropologist from Tribhuvan University in Nepal, was sent the images through a colleague. Initially dismissive, he changed his tone after noticing something everyone else had overlooked: the pouch-like object around the creature's waist. If you zoom in and adjust the contrast, you can see a woven pattern, not unlike hemp or Himalayan nettle fiber. The craftsmanship is crude but deliberate. That's not an accident, that's culture. His implication was staggering. This wasn't just an animal. This was a being, one potentially capable of crafting tools, garments, maybe even social structures. Online, the reactions ranged from awestruck to aggressively skeptical. Photoshop wizards tried recreating the image to prove it could be faked. None came close. Skeptics claimed it was a man in a suit, but motion studies comparing the figure's stride to that of a human suggested different weight distribution and joint articulation. In particular, the way the arms swung lower with a strange rhythm resembled something closer to an extinct hominin than a person in costume. Several digital forensic firms unofficially weighed in on Reddit and Twitter, some anonymously, claiming their internal software couldn't find signs of tampering. One comment from a verified user with ties to the BBC's Natural History Unit stated, "If this was staged, it was done with the kind of planning and budget you'd expect from a major documentary crew, and even then, you'd still struggle to make it look this real." But it was the eyes that haunted everyone most. Image enhancement specialists working with AI filters attempted to bring more clarity to the close-up shots of the face. One pass revealed a startling detail: visible sclera, the whites of the eyes. Most animals have minimal sclera exposure, especially in snow-covered environments where camouflage is key, but these eyes looked expressive, alert, almost anxious. Then there was the reflection. In one of the enhanced frames, a light source in the creature's eye reflection revealed the faint silhouette of the photographer, Jacob, not just a vague shape, but the actual outline of a human figure holding a camera. The angles matched. The reflection confirmed something chilling. The creature wasn't just looking, it was making eye contact. By this point, mainstream news outlets had picked up the story. Initially, it was treated like a clickbait oddity. Has the Yeti finally been captured on camera? But the tone shifted when several scientists refused to outright dismiss the images. Dr. Marcia Gleason, a primatologist at the University of Washington, offered a cautious but pointed opinion during a podcast interview. "If this is an elaborate hoax, it's one of the most biologically convincing I've ever seen. The proportions suggest something evolved for cold, high-altitude environments, large lung capacity, dense muscle mass, specialized fur. If it's fake, it's the work of someone with a deep understanding of primate anatomy. If it's real, then the world just got bigger." The online community splintered into factions. Some were convinced the Yeti had finally stepped out of folklore into the light of scientific scrutiny. Others insisted it was a clever viral marketing stunt, though no product or brand ever took credit. A third camp believed something far darker: that Jacob's image had captured not a mythical beast, but something else, a failed experiment, a relic from military bioengineering, or even a remnant of pre-human civilizations. Meanwhile, more information about the camera began circulating. Jacob had used a Nikon Z9 with a 600mm f4 telephoto lens, an elite setup capable of capturing astonishing clarity from long range. The images were taken at ISO 800, aperture f5.6, and shutter speed 1/1000, perfect for freezing motion in the early morning light. Environmental data from the metadata matched known weather conditions that day in the Makalu region. In short, everything checked out. No anomalies, no inconsistencies, just the unsettling reality of a clear, high-resolution photo of something impossible. Still, the world wanted more. a video, a second witness, a footprint, a hair sample. But sometimes, one moment is enough. One snapshot of something just wrong enough to make you pause, to reevaluate what you believe about the world. And that's exactly what Jacob's images did. They didn't prove the Yeti exists. They made it impossible to say with certainty that it doesn't. History and legends of the Yeti. The creature Jacob photographed wasn't just an anomaly. It was a living echo of a legend as old as the mountains themselves. Long before the word Yeti became a pop culture punchline or a staple of animated holiday specials, it existed as something far more primal in the collective consciousness of the Himalayan people. A guardian, a predator, a god, a ghost. Known by many names across Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, and northern India, Mehte, Migoi, Dzute, or simply the wild man of the snows, the Yeti has always walked a strange line between myth and memory. For centuries, Sherpas, monks, and highland villagers passed down oral stories of tall, hairy beings living high above the tree line. Creatures that avoided human contact, but left behind disturbing signs of their presence. Twisted livestock corpses, deep-set footprints in freshly fallen snow, bone-chilling howls echoing off canyon walls. These weren't just campfire tales, they were warnings. In many regions, it was considered taboo to seek the Yeti or speak of it openly. Doing so, elders warned, invited misfortune or worse. Western fascination with the Yeti didn't truly ignite until the early 20th century. In 1921, during a British expedition to Mount Everest, led by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Howard Barry, members of the team reported seeing large footprints at high altitudes. Their Sherpa guides referred to them as belonging to the Meto Kangmi, which the press mistranslated into abominable snowman. The name stuck, and suddenly the Yeti was no longer a Himalayan spirit. It was a global mystery. The following decades saw a flood of expeditions, many with serious scientific backing. Perhaps the most famous came in 1951, when renowned mountaineer Eric Shipton took photographs of a set of enormous footprints near the Menlung Glacier. The images, crisp and unsettling, sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The toes were human-like, yet the scale was enormous. These photos are still cited today, and some experts argue that Jacob Marchant's images may be the first visual match in terms of scale and proportion. Even Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to summit Everest, joined the search. Though he remained skeptical, his expeditions to find the Yeti in the 60s added credibility to the phenomenon. Hair samples, footprints, and even alleged scalps of the creature were collected and examined. Most were dismissed as belonging to known animals, bears, goats, or monkeys. Still, some anomalies remained unexplained. One curious detail: in remote monasteries, monks continued to tell stories of the Yeti, not as a monster, but as a reclusive creature who kept its distance until provoked. That dichotomy, beast or being, still haunts modern discussions of the Yeti. Jacob's photos seem to straddle that line. The creature appears powerful, but not aggressive. Intelligent, but not quite human. It fits neatly into the existing mythology, not contradicting it, but enhancing it. And perhaps that's why the photos have resonated so deeply, not just with cryptid enthusiasts, but with local communities who've carried these stories for generations without external validation. In the village closest to where Jacob claims he took the photos, its name deliberately withheld to protect the location. The reaction was mixed. Elders nodded knowingly, as if Jacob had simply confirmed what they'd long known. Younger locals, more plugged into global media, were split between pride and concern. Some feared a flood of outsiders, tourists, researchers, and journalists who might descend upon their sacred spaces in search of a glimpse of the Yeti. Others saw opportunity, a chance to control the narrative, to speak their truth on a global stage. But here's the twist. Legends like the Yeti don't survive for centuries on nothing. Anthropologists suggest that such stories often stem from real encounters, misunderstood or exaggerated over time. Perhaps early Himalayan peoples did encounter a now extinct species of hominin, a cold adapted relative of humans like the Denisovans or even relict Neanderthals. The mountains, after all, preserve secrets well. The Yeti isn't the only wild man legend either. Across the world, cultures separated by oceans and millennia share eerie similarities in their folklore. The Bigfoot of North America, the Almas of Mongolia, the Orang Pendek of Sumatra, and the Chuchunya of Siberia. Always tall, always covered in hair, always avoiding humans, always almost human. Could these be shared memory echoes of a once global species? Or a psychological projection, a kind of Jungian archetype for the wildness we fear in ourselves? Jacob's images have reignited those theories in a way no blurry trail cam footage ever could. They've forced scientists and skeptics alike to revisit old evidence with fresh eyes. A footprint plaster cast that once seemed dubious now looks eerily similar to the proportions in the photographs. A decades-old drawing by a Tibetan monk, long dismissed as imaginative, now seems prophetic. The lines between folklore and fact have never felt so blurred. Importantly, the images have also prompted a cultural reckoning. For centuries, Western scientists approached Yeti legends with thinly veiled condescension, treating them as quaint superstitions or charming nonsense. Now, some of those same scientists are being forced to admit that the local people, those who've lived in the shadow of these peaks for generations, might have known more all along. There's a growing movement to prioritize indigenous knowledge in the search for answers. After all, who better to guide the way than those who've already learned to live alongside the unknown? Yet there's a tension beneath all of this. If Jacob's creature is real, and if it aligns with the mythological Yeti, then the world faces a moral and scientific crossroad. What do we do with a living legend? Do we study it, protect it, leave it alone? And perhaps more unsettling, if it's real, what else is? For Jacob, the mythology has become deeply personal. In interviews, he speaks with a mix of awe and discomfort. "I went up there chasing stories," he once said. "I thought maybe I'd come back with nothing. Or a footprint, maybe some scratch marks on a tree. I didn't expect to meet the myth." And that's the core of it. The Yeti has always existed in the liminal space. Me, half folklore, half possibility. But now, through the lens of one man's camera, it may be stepping out of the shadows and into the pages of modern natural history. Whether it's an undiscovered hominin, an evolutionary offshoot, or something else entirely, one thing is clear: Jacob's discovery didn't just capture an image. It captured a bridge between worlds, science and myth, the known and the unknowable. And for the first time in recorded history, the Yeti may no longer be something we only speak of in hushed tones around fires. It may be something we see clearly, undeniably, and face to face. But what is the Yeti really? Science versus mystery. For centuries, the Yeti has been cloaked in mystery, straddling the boundary between folklore and possibility. Now, armed with Jacob's astonishing images, science is forced to confront a question many thought settled. Could the Yeti really exist? And if so, what exactly might it be? The first instinct of scientists faced with such evidence is skepticism, and for good reason. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. The Himalayas are one of the most explored mountain ranges on Earth, yet the Yeti has evaded definitive capture or scientific verification. For decades, many believed the Yeti was simply a legend, a cultural myth, born from misidentifications of known animals like bears or snow leopards. But Jacob's photos defy simple explanations. Unlike the blurry, grainy shots often associated with cryptid sightings, these images are crisp, detailed, and consistent with real-world physics and biology. That puts researchers in a tough spot. How to reconcile a lack of physical evidence, bones, DNA, carcasses, with such striking photographic proof. One leading hypothesis gaining traction is that the Yeti could be a relic hominin species, an ancient branch of the human family tree that somehow survived into the modern age. This idea isn't pure fantasy. Recent advances in paleogenetics have shown that humans once interbred with other hominins like Neanderthals and Denisovans. The latter is especially relevant, as Denisovan fossils were discovered in the Altai Mountains, not too far from the Himalayas. Could a population have survived, isolated by rugged terrain and harsh climate? If so, the Yeti might be an undiscovered species, part human, part ape, adapted to cold, high-altitude environments. The thick fur, large lungs, and muscular build captured in the photos certainly fit that profile. It would explain why such a creature remained hidden for so long. Survival would require extreme stealth, careful avoidance of humans, and a life in terrain few dare to explore. Others propose more conventional explanations. Some scientists argue the creature might be an unusually large and rare subspecies of bear, like the Himalayan brown bear or the Tibetan blue bear. Bears can walk upright for short distances, have thick fur, and leave massive footprints that could be mistaken for those of a humanoid. However, the facial features and body proportions seen in the photos do not match known bears. In particular, the apparent limb structure and gait seem more primate than ursine. There's also a less scientific, but no less fascinating theory floating around: the Yeti as a cryptid with unknown origins, an evolutionary anomaly, or even a living fossil. Some fringe researchers suggest it could be a remnant of a prehistoric megafauna lineage that somehow survived the mass extinctions that wiped out many giant mammals. While this idea is speculative, it captures the imagination and drives curiosity. The scientific community is also grappling with the ethical implications of Jacob's discovery. If the Yeti is real and living in these remote mountains, it raises questions about conservation, habitat protection, and human impact. These are fragile ecosystems, threatened by climate change, tourism, and development. Any effort to study or protect the creature must balance scientific inquiry with respect for local cultures and environmental sustainability. Moreover, local Himalayan communities hold a profound spiritual relationship with the Yeti. For many, the creature is not just an animal, but a sacred being, guardian of the mountains, embodiment of nature's power. Scientists must tread carefully to avoid disrupting that delicate balance or exploiting the myth for sensationalism. Jacob's photos have reignited interest in the search for physical evidence beyond images: hair samples, DNA, footprints, and, if luck allows, live encounters. Modern technology offers new tools. Environmental DNA sampling allows researchers to analyze genetic material left behind in soil, water, or snow without disturbing wildlife. Thermal imaging drones can cover difficult terrain quietly and efficiently. AI-powered motion sensors can detect unusual movement patterns invisible to the human eye. Some researchers have already launched new expeditions with this cutting-edge equipment. Their goal? To finally bridge the gap between myth and science. Yet, the mountain's secrecy remains formidable. The high altitudes, unpredictable weather, and vast wilderness make sustained research difficult. Meanwhile, Jacob continues to guard the location where he took the photos, aware that revealing too much could endanger the creature or himself. His experience has transformed from that of an explorer chasing legends to a cautious witness of something deeply mysterious. "I don't know if the Yeti wants to be found," he has said, "but it's definitely watching." The debate over the Yeti's existence encapsulates a broader tension in science: the challenge of investigating phenomena that defy conventional understanding. It forces scientists to stay open-minded without abandoning rigor, to balance wonder with skepticism. Jacob's images may not answer every question, but they push us to ask better ones. At the heart of this story lies a timeless truth: the world is bigger and stranger than we often admit. Despite centuries of exploration, there remain corners of the earth where nature's secrets wait patiently, invisible but not gone. Whether the Yeti is a biological reality or a powerful symbol, its story reminds us how much remains undiscovered. If the Yeti does exist beyond myth and legend, what would that mean for science, culture, and the world at large? What happens if the Yeti is real? If the Yeti is real, the consequences would ripple far beyond the isolated peaks of the Himalayas. It wouldn't just rewrite biology textbooks, It would challenge our understanding of evolution, ecology, and even humanity's place in the natural world. First and foremost, the discovery of a previously unknown large mammal, especially one that appears intelligent and culturally aware, would be one of the most significant zoological finds in centuries. Scientists would scramble to study the creature, eager to understand its genetics, behavior, and adaptations to high-altitude life. Such a find could unlock new insights into human evolution, revealing how ancient hominins may have survived and interacted with modern humans. The Yeti might provide a living link to our distant ancestors, reshaping the human family tree in ways we never imagined. But the implications extend beyond science. The confirmation of the Yeti's existence would force governments, conservationists, and local communities to reconsider how they protect fragile Himalayan ecosystems. This creature would almost certainly be endangered, requiring immediate protection efforts to preserve its habitat from deforestation, tourism, and climate change. The challenge would be enormous, balancing scientific study, indigenous rights, and environmental sustainability in a region already vulnerable to geopolitical tensions. Culturally, the validation of the Yeti could have profound effects on the Himalayan peoples who have revered the creature for generations. What was once dismissed by outsiders as myth would become a source of pride and renewed cultural identity. However, it could also lead to unwanted attention, mass tourism, media exploitation, or even poaching threats. Protecting the creature's mystique and habitat would require delicate cooperation between local communities and international organizations. Globally, the Yeti's existence would challenge the modern mindset that everything is known. It would remind us that despite centuries of exploration and technology, mysteries remain, wild places where life thrives beyond our current understanding. Finally, there are philosophical and existential consequences. Encountering the Yeti blurs the line between myth and reality, forcing humanity to grapple with the unknown in a tangible way. It questions the arrogance of assuming we have cataloged all life on Earth, and opens the door to wonder, humility, and a deeper respect for the planet's hidden depths. In short, if the Yeti is real, it wouldn't just be a discovery. It would be a profound transformation in how we see ourselves and the wild world we share. What do you think of the Yeti mystery? Drop your comments below, and for more content like this, subscribe to the channel for free.